gymnastics. Whenever you're ready.
I ran here. Hi, my name's Veronica. I was watching TV the other day, and I happened to see this, flipping through the channels, how it is, and I happened to see a show that had girls dancing, performing on stage. They were very tan. They were very fake. They had fake nails, fake hair. And at first you may be thinking I was watching some sort of like MTV special for Nicki Minaj, but in reality I was just watching Toddlers and Tiaras, which is a show on TLC concerning childhood beauty pageants. And my speech is going to be concerning childhood beauty pageants. I first want to define childhood beauty pageants in terms of what they're referring to as glitz pageants, which is not just the normal childhood beauty pageant. They get up there and they see a little skit and they get off. These are little girls who are definitely performers, and they happen to wear a lot of fake items such as, like I mentioned, fake skin, fake nails, to achieve the look of a living doll. My claim is that childhood beauty pageants negatively affect beauty ideals, and I'm going to assert that by stating that childhood beauty pageants over-sexualize little girls. Then I'm going to move on how childhood beauty pageants negatively affect the child's health. And finally, I'm going to end on how childhood beauty pageants over-sexualize the participants. So my first assertion is that childhood beauty pageants negatively affect their beauty ideals. It teaches the children that pretty/skinny will get you ahead of life. So from the beginning, the child are judged on their outward appearance. They even have specific categories and like the most beautiful, the most prettiest face, things like that, which can have a very negative impact on their future life. Dr. Martina Cartwright states that not all pageant participants will have body issues when they get older, but some do. For the girls who do develop image obsession, it appears that hypercritical environments of their youth produces a drive towards the unattainable goal of physical perfection. Unrealistic expectations to be thin, physically beautiful, and perfect are at the heart of some disorders and eating behaviors and body dysfunctions. So overall, this can lead to a negative self-esteem if they are not considered beautiful enough and if they don't win. And in reality, there are 50, 60 girls who compete, and only a couple win and get the big crowns, which they're hopefully striving for. Another assertion I like to make is by psychologist Major Roxanne Elliott, and she stated, the fact that girls are judged on how perfectly curled their hair is and how flawless their complexion is can set them up for a life of believing they are never good enough because they will never be the perfect doll-like image the judges are looking for. So this overall will have future negative ramifications. So from moving on, to this, on how beauty ideals affect child beauty pageants, I'd like to move on to my next point, which is how child beauty pageants negatively affect the child's health. And I'd like to start off with my first point of the high levels of caffeine that the participants intake. ABC News correspondent Andrea Canning states that this product called Go-Go Juice that the participant's mom states, and she said Go-Go Juice is a combination of Mountain Dew and part Red Bull, two well-known energy drinks. One of each can of 2 drinks combined contains about the same amount of caffeine as 2 cups of coffee. And then according to a 2011 report from the American Academic Pediatrics, too much caffeine for young children can lead to neurological and cardiovascular problems. So this obviously poses a negative threat on their health because not only can it stunt their growth, but it can affect how they grow up in the future. Additionally, another point I'd like to make is tanning. They're pretty much required to tan the children for them to even win, really, because they see the fair skin is they don't win if they have fair skin. So the majority of them choose a spray tan versus like a tanning booth or like laying down in the sun, and this can have very negative effects. Dr. Ray Pedersen, toxicologist and lung specialist at the University of Pennsylvania School of medicine states, the reason I'm concerned against tanning agents into lungs could really facilitate or aid in the systematic absorption of the tanning solution getting into the bloodstream. These components in some cells could actually promote the development of cancer, and if this is the case, we need to be worrying them. And the use of DHA in tanning booths as an overall spray has not been approved by the FDA. And now that I talked about the negative health concerns, I'd like to move on to my final point, which is that child beauty pageants over-sexualize little girls. In the child beauty pageant industry, a lot of times there's a swimsuit competition where little girls have to dress up and prance around. They also have to walk and perform a certain way. They're encouraged to blow kisses and to swivel their non-existent hips and things like that. So this can cause harm because it can increase the participant's likelihood of being targeted by a childhood predator. Now, I'm not saying that every child who participates is going to get attacked by a childhood predator, but they are putting themselves out there in a sexual light, which could be negative for the participant. In May of 2009, Jeffrey Benson, who was sentenced to 45 years for sexual assault, before he left, he stated in a courtroom that most people fantasize about having sex with children, he said, and then he further defended his action by mentioning childhood beauty pageants. And although this is just one statement from one pedophile, it does kind of show that pedophiles are thinking of this sort of light, especially with the availability of their videos and pictures. So now that I talked about how the childhood beauty pageants have negatively impacted, I like to end with saying that childhood beauty pageants negatively affect beauty ideals because they are over-sexualized. They also have skewed beauty ideals, and finally, it negatively affects their health.
All right, Veronica, the organizational stuff is really solid. I like the attention device that you have, just telling the story about seeing the show and then kind of leading into the topic. Very clear proposition, a very good layout of the supporting material. I think when I'd have to watch it back, but it sounded to me a little bit like you kind of repeated your first claim and your third claim in the preview. It was distinct definitely in the structure, and so the first point was definitely something different, but I think in the preview it may have sounded like you were repeating yourself. Double check it and listen to it. Maybe I just slipped a cog, but that's the way I started writing things down. I thought that sounded a little bit odd. Okay, on the support on each of the points, you did cite the authorities that you're quoting there, but sometimes the testimony is pretty speculative. I don't know if it's based on direct observation or just theory. There's no quantification on any of these risks, so I think that that's a little bit problematic. And the idea that something is possible is probably not deniable, but the likelihood or the probability of it happening is the thing that makes this really an argument. That's where the argument is. Just as an example, the pedophile thing, a pedophile could be set off by anything. Could they be set off by this? Yes, they could, but they could be set off by 1,000 other things. So why is this unique? Why is this special? Why is this more dangerous? If they were more frequently set off, if we saw a trend on something like that, that would give us pause to think that this is really a distinct problem. All right. Let's see, like I said, and that's kind of the issue on most of the points, is that you have an explanation of what the issue is, and there's a little bit of theory on it, but the proof is a little bit thin. The story about the woman with the go-go juice, I don't know if that is a standard thing that they just pass out at the pageants, everybody gets some go-go juice, or if that's one mother's creation that she uses to keep her child up. So there's another example of something. I'm not sure how generalizable it is. So I think the examples are good, but now you have to show us that this is something that is not just an occasional thing, but it's something that happens regularly. All right, thank you.